Howdy, boys and girls. I'm Charles Ham, author of Ponder on It, Pilgrims. It's the book I wrote, and it's a three-time #1 international bestseller. And love for y'all to read it. If you'd like to read more about it, learn more about it, you can go to my website, uh, charlesham.com, or you can find it on Amazon. Well, here we are again on the cabin porch, and y'all just gather around, find you a comfortable place to sit. I want to talk to you about a little something and tell a story or two, and y'all need to be on your way. What I want to talk today about is kind of a mixed subject, but I think you'll get the idea. I'm going to start off by telling you a story about when I was a 10-year-old boy. School had just let out, and I lived out in the country, and being able to find a job was hard to do. Some of the older boys would get jobs baling hay, but I still wasn't stout enough to do that kind of work, although there were times when I'd ride along with them and try to help, and mostly got in the way. But I was determined that I was going to find me some kind of work and make some money. And I happened to think about a man that lived a couple of miles from me that had a fruit farm. And I decided I was going to go over there and see if I couldn't get a job. So I headed out through the cross country, through woods and fields, and climbing over fences until I got to the road where his place was, and walked up and asked him if he had any work for me. And he did. He said, "Yeah, you can help me pick strawberries." And I said, "Well," and he said, "When can you start?" And I said, "Well, I'll start right now." And he, "Come on." So he took me down to this huge field of strawberries and gave me one of these crates that held 4 wooden quart baskets. And he said, "Go out there and start picking strawberries." And he said, "When you filled up all 4 of these baskets, bring it back in and I'll pay you 50 cents. It sounded like a deal to me. So I started picking strawberries. And I realized I could fill those things up in about an hour. I got to calculating, and I worked 8 hours, or approximately 8 hours, and the man paid me 50-cent pieces, or some of you young folks have never heard of them, but it used to be like a big quarter, and it was worth a half a dollar. I walked home with 8 50-cent coins in my pocket. And I just felt rich. And I was so happy and proud of myself. And when I got home, Daddy was there. And I told him about getting the job and showed him the money. And Daddy was an old-fashioned father. He was a kind, gentle, loving man, but he wasn't my friend. He was my father, and the line was never blurred. And I'll talk about that maybe a little bit more later. But when I told Daddy what had happened, he looked at me with kind of a firm face and asked me a question I never forgot. He said, "Did you thank him for the work?" And I said, "No, sir, I didn't." And very firmly and a mite sternly, Daddy said, "If a man gives you a job, thank him every day." And then he added something else: "Make him a good hand." Through the years, I've thought about that moment in time, and I'm going to go into it in just a minute, understanding the generation that my daddy came from. But there was something about a job that was a sacred trust to those people. Something about understanding and being thankful for the opportunity that someone else might give you to make some money for yourself. And he felt that there was a sense that if someone gave him work, that there was a sense of gratefulness and thankfulness, and it showed up and exemplified itself in doing a good day's job and earning your money. Daddy was born in 1918, and that was the year of big flu epidemic where so many people died around the world. But he grew up in a tiny little house in rural Nicholas County, Kentucky. And he was 11 years old. Life was hard for them even before the Depression hit. And Grandpa hunted and fished and did what he could do to make a dollar here or there. But money was tight. They raised a garden, big garden every year. Grandma canned all of the vegetables, and wild game and fish that were caught out of the river was a staple in the family's diet. And then the Depression hit, and all through the 30s, as Daddy was coming of age, there was just no work for a young man. Even people that needed help didn't have the money to pay you, and times were hard. And so this young man grew up and came of age during really difficult times in the history of our country. And then it was World War II came along. Daddy joined the Army and was a veteran of World War II. Now, we talk about the greatest generation, and Daddy was a part of that generation and exemplified the kind of people they were and the times in which they grew up in. And it was the times that they grew up in that made them the greatest generation. They were people that had to deal with hardship. They were people that had to rise above circumstances. And now with a war to fight, when Daddy got out of the Army in 1945, he started looking for work, and times were better then. And he was 27 years old when he got his first good paying factory job. Up until that point, being in the Army was the only thing he'd ever done that would be able to produce a steady paycheck. But that generation, my daddy included, went on to build a great country and a great economy because they were men who were tempered by their upbringing. Daddy raised me as he had been raised. And there was another kind of a split in the way of thinking. The World War II generation, the greatest generation, the biggest mistake is they, generally speaking, spoiled their kids rotten. And the Christmas time came around, and different philosophies of how to rear children began to be debated. But Daddy raised me as a father. We never wrestled around. He never acted silly with me. He always kept a certain distance. And he taught me the value of work and responsibility to other people. He taught me that work was essentially service to the person that gave you a job, but it was also service to your fellow man. When you have a job, you're doing something that contributes to the health and well-being of that company, who are providing goods and services to other people. And that's what makes what you do of value and worthy of your pay. And I would just like to say, in conclusion, that you should keep that in mind, and that a good man or a good woman that has a job and has taken the job from someone else, earn your pay, do a good job. It's a moral responsibility. And you can say what you want to about this or that or the other, or you don't like your job or all that. Well, if you don't like your job, then get another job. But if you're taking a man's pay or a woman's pay, then you serve them well. And that's just the way I feel about things. Now, as far as Texas Grit is concerned here today, I would like to say that a job is a sacred trust, and take care of it and do it well. All right, ponder on it, Pilgrims. I love you all, and I'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.